Arirang Overseas TV Viewers Survey. We look forward to hearing from you.
도시는 세계와 연결되어 문화를 창조했고 새로운 것을 받아들였다.
함께여서 우리는 더 자유롭고 더 멀리 갈 수 있어.
닫힌 문이 아니라 열린 질문으로
나에게 A극은
자유,
융합,
국제성,
다양성, 포용,
개발.
신라의 정신이 APEC 2025로 이어집니다.
Welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. U.S. President Donald Trump says tariffs will be in the 15 to 20% range for most countries that have yet to strike a deal. As the deadline approaches, the United States and China held their third round of trade talks. And South Korea's finance minister is also set to travel to Washington later today for tariff negotiations. The North Korean leader's powerful sister says although the personal relationship between Kim Jong-un and Trump isn't bad, the regime is not willing to sit down for talks on denuclearization. South Korea continues to swelter under a heat dome, with heat wave warnings remaining in place across most of the country. The capital Seoul is expected to see the temperature soar to 37 degrees Celsius today. U.S. President Donald Trump says most trading partners that have not yet reached a trade deal will face tariffs of 15 to 20%. The comments come as Seoul continues to seek a deal before the negotiation deadline this week. Our Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
U.S. President Donald Trump hinted that his administration expects to set tariffs somewhere between 15 to 20% for most of the countries that have not yet reached a trade deal. The U.S. leader made the remarks during a meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer in Scotland, as Trump's reciprocal tariffs, including the 25% levies on South Korea, are set to go into effect on Friday. Senior trade officials from Seoul have been busy with their negotiation efforts, but have yet to reach a deal. The Trump administration has so far agreed to bilateral trade deals with the EU, the UK, Japan, Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Meanwhile, in Stockholm, top U.S. and Chinese trade officials held talks for more than 5 hours with the aim of resolving long-standing economic disputes. Washington has given an August 12th deadline to China to reach a tariff agreement after the two economic powerhouses reached preliminary deals in May and June to end their tit-for-tat tariffs. The two sides are expected to continue discussions on Tuesday. A different kind of deadline was also issued by President Trump on Monday, as he gave Russia 10 or 12 days for Russia to reach a peace deal or face tough new sanctions.
Yeah, I'd say 10 to 12 days. I'll announce it probably tonight or tomorrow. But there's no reason to wait. If you know what the answer is going to be, why wait? And it would be sanctions and maybe tariffs, secondary tariffs. You know what a secondary tariff is.
Trump has repeatedly voiced frustration with Russian President Vladimir Putin for continued attacks on Ukraine, despite his efforts to end the war. 이승재, Arirang News.
The clock is ticking as the Lee Jae-myung administration looks to clinch a deal with Washington to swerve the 25% reciprocal tariffs going into effect this week. Senior officials are making last-minute efforts to engage with their American counterparts. Our Oh Soo-young reports.
Just before the August 1st deadline for Washington's reciprocal tariffs, pressure is mounting for South Korean officials as they aim to strike a trade deal with the United States. As of Monday, Seoul's Trade Minister Kim Jong-un has reportedly flown from the US to Europe in a last-ditch attempt to engage with Trump administration officials following the US-EU summit in Scotland. This comes ahead of the delayed 2+2 talks between South Korea and the US's trade and finance-related ministers. Citing a scheduling conflict, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer last Friday postponed the meeting to July 31st, one day before the 25% duties on Korean goods take effect. Finance Minister Koo Yoon-cho received a cancellation notice just 1 hour before he was due to take off to Washington, D.C. He will instead leave on Tuesday to meet with Bessent on Thursday local time. The US has been demanding greater access to the agricultural market, as well as digital and auto sectors. According to local media, Seoul is expected to leverage America's interest in Korean shipbuilding. Trade Minister Kim last week proposed a multi-billion-dollar Make American Shipbuilding Great Again plan, which was reportedly received with strong interest by US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. There's also growing speculation that a bilateral investment fund modeled after Japan's $550 billion deal could be on the table. Seoul is reportedly reviewing plans to expand its proposed investment beyond the initial $100 billion, involving the country's largest conglomerates such as Samsung SK, Hyundai Motor, LG and Hana. Foreign Minister Cho Hyun is also set to meet U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in parallel talks on Thursday in D.C. for what could be a final opportunity to reach a breakthrough. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
So as we just heard, Korean officials are making all-out efforts to strike a deal before the trade deadline set by U.S. President Donald Trump ends on Friday. For more on what to expect, we're joined by Dr. Stephen Norper, president of Asia Dialogue. Dr. Norper, thanks for joining us this morning.
Delighted to be back. Thank you.
So South Korean officials have yet to reach a trade deal despite recent talks in Washington. What exactly is the United States seeking from South Korea?
Well, the United States is seeking a few things. One of them is forward movement. You've just heard about the ship building deal, and that seems to have fallen on very eager ears in the U.S. administration. It is something that Donald Trump has expressed an interest in since he visited a Korean shipbuilding facility in 1998, and he feels that South Korea can help modernize U.S. ships, and already there are several under repair in Korea, but to help revitalize U.S. port abilities in this regard. And so South Korea could lend that expertise and really help encourage the U.S. capacity in shipbuilding. Beyond that, of course, they want more open markets, especially for U.S. agricultural goods, in particular for beef. And they would like to see South Korea engaged in an investment fund, not unlike that which they struck with the Japanese at $550 billion. But they would see that in terms of perhaps energy as well as agriculture. Those are some of the things on the U.S. plate when it comes to the economic incentives. And I'm pretty confident that Seoul will get what it's looking for in terms of the 15% mark. We've just seen that with Japan and now with the European Union, and of course, South Korea, a primary U.S. ally and one that's been working hard to strike an agreement, should see some success in this regard.
I see, and like you just mentioned, Seoul appears to be considering the shipbuilding sector as a bargaining chip in the negotiations, while also showing some flexibility on the agenda, now indicating that agricultural products, like you mentioned, are also on the table. So do you see this as an effective strategy, and what might a possible deal look like?
It is an effective strategy in terms of something that approaches Donald Trump in a very personable way. It's something that he has, again, long been vested in. It's something that his Commerce Secretary has expressed enthusiasm about in terms of building or rebuilding America's prowess in terms of shipbuilding. And they look to Korea. It's actually something where Korea has developed a fundamental expertise. Of course, of central value to the Americans is try to counter China, which now has the world's leading shipbuilding industry and now has a larger naval fleet than the United States. So it would allow the United States to enhance its capacity through really critical South Korean assistance. And so we need to look at it from both the economic and the security perspective. And it's a way of further engaging the alliance and giving it new impetus, new rationale, as we have done over so many years.
Right, and South Korea's foreign minister is also expected to hold talks with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Washington on the 31st. So how should the Korean government address the burden sharing issue regarding U.S. troops in Korea? Will security concerns also affect the ongoing trade negotiations?
Well, security concerns are certainly doing that. There's China, as we've mentioned, of course, a lot of concern about what's happened in the South China Sea and the East China Sea. Beyond China, of course, what's happening with Russia, Ukraine, in particular with DPRK assistance, which has been significant, at least by the admission of both Moscow and Pyongyang. And beyond that, global instability, concerns across the Middle East, et cetera. So having a firm security relationship and one that is bolstered by increased South Korean support is important to this administration. It seems that South Korean officials are prepared to pay more for sustaining U.S. troops on the peninsula. However, the reality is also that the U.S. will probably downsize troops over time on the peninsula, especially as they look at the Taiwan issue and as they forward deploy U.S. troops from the peninsula and they consider basing in other places that permit some flexibility. So we'll see some movement back and forth, not only with places like Okinawa and Guam, but perhaps some reduction. That's not to be interpreted as a reduction in terms of commitment to South Korea, but rather a modification on the part of the U.S. Department of Defense to address that concern. And so they're hoping that that takes care of that. But there will no doubt be a larger ask of South Korea, and it seems it's one that South Korea has prepared for.
I see. And President Donald Trump has been making it clear that he's putting American interests over those of U.S. allies. How do you think the Lee-Jae-myung administration should manage the alliance with the United States over his 5-year term?
Well, the Lee administration has seemed to show some very good instincts in terms of playing a moderate line. Of course, the prior administration had reinforced Japan and U.S.-South Korea relations in terms of the trilateral coordination. That will continue, and the administration has expressed its support in that regard. But we've also a lot of multilateral institutions across the region, of course, countries with common interest in democracy. We've mentioned Taiwan, there's India, Australia, New Zealand, all of those working with the United States, Japan, and Korea to strengthen the security situation in the region. And of course, a fundamental crux of it is this Korea-U.S. alliance, which has been so historic in its formation. So there's no doubt that there's enthusiasm also on the economic front. And so the real impetus now will be behind Korea's hosting this fall's APEC meeting, because economic security, especially after the concerns over tariffs and some of the to and fro that's occurred in both South Korea and the U.S. domestic calculus so far this year, will be South Korea out trying to provide an assurance and show the world its regional and global leadership capacity through APEC. So those are also important initiatives to address oneself to. And of course, there's the United Nations, which is out there to help the United States, South Korea, and others, especially on issues like North Korea in terms of moderation and good offices. So a lot of complexes that allow the U.S. And Korean allies to work to strengthen not only on the bilateral level, but in many-lateral and multilateral ways as well, to reinforce regional cooperation to address Korean and U.S. concerns.
I see. All right, Dr. Norpa, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you for your questions. Aloha and have a great day.
Samsung Electronics has clinched a landmark $16.5 billion deal to supply AI chips to Tesla, a move set to revitalize a struggling foundry division. Our Moon Ji-young has the details.
Samsung Electronics will produce AI semiconductors for Tesla in a new agreement, which could prove to be a game changer for its currently underperforming foundry division. In a regulatory filing, the South Korean chip giant announced on Monday that it had secured a 22.8 trillion won, or $16.5 billion chip-making agreement. The deal represents 7.6% of Samsung Electronics' total revenue of 300.9 trillion won in 2024, marking it as the largest chip order for a single client secured by the company. This long-term contract is set to run for more than 8 years through the end of December 2033. The tech giant initially did not disclose the identity of the client or the specifics of the deal, citing management confidentiality. Tesla CEO Elon Musk said in a social media post later in the day that Samsung would produce next-generation AI6 semiconductors for the company. The Korean firm currently produces AI4s, while Taiwan's TSMC manufactures AI5s. In a reply to a comment, Musk also suggested the deal could be much more than the amount Samsung had disclosed. Following the announcement, shares of Samsung Electronics surged 6.3% on intraday trading, going above 70,000 won for the first time since last September. Samsung has been steadily losing ground in certain manufacturing sectors, and so this record-breaking deal is expected to give a much-needed boost to its foundry division, which has long struggled to catch up with global industry leader TSMC. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
Monday was a mixed day for Wall Street, with investors cautious about upcoming big tech earnings reports, the FOMC meeting, and the release of key economic data. While the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell more than 64 points on the day, the S&P 500 rose slightly, up 0.02%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq climbed over 70 points. Both the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq closed at new all-time highs. Wall Street gave up early gains during the session ahead of a big week, with big tech companies publishing earnings figures. The FOMC meeting will take place over 2 days starting Tuesday, with key economic indicators such as the July employment numbers expected to weigh heavily on sentiment. The powerful sister of North Korea's leader has issued her second statement in 2 days, this time saying that while relations between the U.S. and North Korean leaders are not bad, there won't be any future talks to end the North's nuclear program. Our Choi Soo-young reports.
On Tuesday, Kim Yo-jong, the sister of the regime's leader Kim Jong-un, said through the North State-run Korean Central News Agency that the U.S. must accept the new reality. She added that if Washington continues to cling to the past, any meeting with the North will remain only America's hope. Kim noted that the personal relationship between the U.S. President Donald Trump and the North leader Kim Jong-un is not bad. But she stressed that if the U.S. intended to use this relationship as a step toward denuclearization, it would only be regarded as mockery to the North. She said that since Trump's first term, both North Korea's nuclear capabilities and the geopolitical environment have changed dramatically. Kim warned that any attempt to deny the position of the North as a nuclear weapon state will be thoroughly rejected. She also said it would not be wise for two nuclear-armed states to move toward confrontation, suggesting that other forms of contact should be explored. Following Kim's statement, the White House has again said that President Trump remains open to talks with Kim Jong-un about denuclearization. Washington and Pyongyang held summits in Singapore in June 2018 and in Hanoi in February 2019, and later met at Panmunjom in June 2019. On Monday, Kim also issued an official statement criticizing South Korea's Lee Jae-myung administration, saying it is no different from its predecessor. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
75 years after the start of the Korean War, some of the men who helped defend South Korea have returned to the country they once fought for. Our Kim Jong-sil reports.
They were in their early 20s when they first arrived in Korea, young men in uniform sent to fight in a country they had never seen. 7 decades later, some of them have returned. 55 guests from 19 countries are taking part in South Korea's Revisit Korea, Review Korea program. Among them, 6 veterans of the Korean War, their families, and delegates from veterans associations. As part of the 6-day program, participants visited the War Memorial of Korea ahead of the official commemoration ceremony on Sunday.
And came here in 1952. Actually, my experience in the war was as a tank driver. We had to defend that place because otherwise the Chinese communists would overrun and come back to Seoul. So that was our job.
Now 91, Yamashiroya was joined by his grandson, who reflected on his grandfather's influence on their family.
He's a really strong and tough person, mentally, and he's really ingrained that in our family and everything he's done. So yeah, it's definitely an honor learning more about the culture of Korea, the history behind the war, hearing about their impact. It means a lot.
I'm so happy for the Korean people because they persevered and make a success out of themselves.
While some veterans were able to return, others could not. Sunday ceremony was held for UN Forces Participation Day, South Korea's official day to honor foreign veterans of the Korean War. U.S. Army Corporal Fred B. McGee was recognized with the country's highest military honor. His daughter accepted the medal on his behalf.
What you've done here this past week has been highly commendable. It's above and beyond anything that I expected. I just celebrate the Korean government and the Korean people for all they've done for the Korean War veterans.
The medal was presented by Prime Minister Kim Min-seok, who also addressed the ceremony.
To protect the freedom and peace of the Republic of Korea, 1.98 million UN troops stood alongside the Korean people. Their sacrifice will never be forgotten.
For the veterans and families who visited this time, the trip offered not only commemoration, but connection. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
Now let's take a look at some stories from around the world with our Choi Ji. Good morning, Ji.
Good morning, Anji.
So, Ji, let's begin with U.S. President Donald Trump's remarks on the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Give us the updates.
Sure. President Trump has acknowledged that the crisis in Gaza has reached a point of real starvation and vowed to build food centers in the enclave. Speaking during a visit to Scotland on Monday, Trump said visual evidence convinced him that starvation in Gaza is real and pledged the creation of U.S.-backed food centers in coordination with European partners. Trump emphasized that the current aid infrastructure is deeply flawed, adding the U.S. would work with other countries to establish food centers without entry barriers, allowing civilians to access aid freely. According to the White House, additional details on the plan are forthcoming. Trump's remarks are in stark contrast with those of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has denied that Gaza is facing starvation, saying Israel continues to allow significant amounts of humanitarian aid into the enclave. Thailand and Cambodia have agreed to an immediate and unconditional ceasefire starting Monday midnight local time, following 5 days of border clashes that killed nearly 40 people and displaced hundreds of thousands. This follows negotiations in the Malaysia headed by Malayan Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. At a joint press conference with acting Thai Prime Minister Phumtham Wechayachai and Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet, Anwar outlined the step-by-step de-escalation process of the conflict. He also stated that a broader border committee session is scheduled for August 4th in Cambodia to address long-standing territorial issues. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump said he had phoned the leaders of both countries and celebrated the outcome, calling himself the president of peace. Over in Africa, the UN reported on Monday that the attack on a Catholic church in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo on Sunday was done by a group linked to the Islamic State. At least 43 churchgoers were killed when armed fighters from the Allied Democratic Forces, a group affiliated with IS, entered the church in the town of Komanda in the Ituri province. The attackers also set fire to nearby homes and shops. Over 20 victims were buried in a mass grave on Monday. MONUSCO, the UN peacekeeping mission in the region, condemned the attack as revolting. Pope Leo XIV also denounced the deadly attack, expressing sorrow and describing the victim as martyrs. Disney has released the first official trailer for Avatar: Fire and Ash, the third installment in James Cameron's epic sci-fi saga, on Monday. The trailer debuted exclusively in theaters alongside Marvel's The Fantastic Four: First Steps and is now available online. It encompasses the visionary land, sea, and air worlds of Pandora at their most dramatic, and also unveils the Ash Clan, a tribe that inhabits volcanic regions. Reviews praise the trailer as a huge level up in action, world building, and emotional depth. The movie is set to open in theaters in December.
Continuous extreme heat makes it tough to be outdoors. Even at night, the air stays hot and heavy. Seoul has now recorded its 10th consecutive tropical night, and many other areas are also dealing with heavy nights. Heat wave warnings remain in place across much of the country, and unfortunately, the intense heat is not going anywhere just yet. This afternoon, Seoul and Daejeon will be climbing to 37 degrees, Chuncheon, Daegu topping out at 36 degrees Celsius, along with very strong UV rays nationwide. We're also expecting scattered showers this afternoon in the central inland regions and northern Jeollabuk-do provinces, with 5 to 40 millimeters expected. Looking ahead, more summer heat to come with blazing sunshine. And as we're spending more time indoors nowadays, we might not move as much. Indoor body stretching could help to improve circulation and relieve tension. And if you're heading out, remember to stay hydrated throughout the day.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.
Arirang TV is conducting an overseas TV viewer survey to provide you with a better global broadcast service. Share your valuable feedback on the Arirang TV website www.arirang.com or mobile application. Survey participants will be selected at random to receive special gifts. 2025 Arirang Overseas TV Viewers Survey. We look forward to hearing from you.
A country where traditional and modern cultures coexist.
Where you can explore spectacular landscapes and nature.
Savor the delights of traveling at every turn.
Where? Korea, of course.
There are some must-visit places in Korea. Ones that appear in every tour guidebook: Hangang River, Gyeongbokgung Palace from the Joseon Dynasty, and...
Yes, these are essentials, but I want to go somewhere a little different. I don't have to follow the guidebook. For example, filming locations for K-pop music videos or K-dramas and movies.
Traveling is all about taking it slow. A long walk at your own pace, or even zoning out somewhere quiet. Doesn't it sound relaxing?
You travel for the experience, trying something new in a foreign place, de-stressing and making lifetime memories, taking tons of pictures along the way.
70% of the Korean territory is mountainous. Naturally, hiking is a very popular pastime in Korea. Not your kind of activity? Trust me, the view will make the effort worth it. Just catch your breath by the cold stream in the valley.
Korea is surrounded by the sea on three sides. From the beach, you can enjoy a wide open view as well as various water activities. But the riverside is great too. There's plenty to see and do.
If you're in Korea, you can't miss the night view full of dazzling lights.
Yes, even the same place can have a totally different vibe at night.
Want to make unforgettable memories?
How about traveling to all corners of Korea? Join us next time to explore more about Korean culture.
drawing more fans from all over the world. Local consumer prices continue to hover at the 2% rate in April.
Turning to robots to allow the visually impaired the chance to better indulge in cultural experiences. Like the number of hybrid cars are registered in South Korea has surpassed 2 million using its locally developed Yuri rocket.
Arirang.
we're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Tuesday, July 29th here in Seoul. I'm Lee Soo-jin, and this is News Generation. Joining us is Im Sang-yeong.
Good to see you guys.
Good to have you. And also Grace Park is with us.
Great to be here.
And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So it's Tuesday, which means we're going to begin with our keyword news, where we look at a story that has been gaining traction over the past 24 hours. And today's keyword is sleep habits. So South Koreans are sleeping less than they did 5 years ago. Data from Statistics Korea Monday showed that the average daily sleep time for people aged 10 and older in South Korea was 8 hours and 4 minutes. That's 8 minutes less than in 2020, which may not seem like a lot, but it does mark the first drop in average sleep time since related data was first collected. On the other hand, time spent on media usage has spiked, rising by 17 minutes compared to 5 years ago to 2 hours and 43 minutes per day. So Grace, on average, how much sleep do you usually get? And what type of media do you find yourself staying up late for the most? Is it YouTube, social media, streaming shows, or something else?
Okay, so I try to get at least 7 hours of sleep per night, but this is kind of a recent change for me because I didn't value sleep as much until I started feeling like really tired in the day, and then I noticed that 1 or 2 hours of sleep, like additional hours of sleep, made a huge difference. And I am able to limit my YouTube watching like right before I go to bed. But the problem is that once I lay down and I turn on my social media, like catching up on Instagram or reading posts on Threads, it's hard for me to stop. So I know that I have to cut down on screen time before bed, but it's hard.
It's so hard because the videos that are suggested to us are curated for us.
I know.
There's things that I'm actually interested in.
Yeah.
So it's so hard to stop. So what about you, Sang-yeong?
So just like Grace, I try to get at least 7 hours of sleep every day. But recently, I don't know about you guys, but because of the hot weather, I couldn't get a deep sleep throughout the night and ended up waking up in the middle. And I don't usually watch that much media before I go to bed, but sometimes I go over the Instagram feed and watch YouTube shorts over and over, and this can get quite addictive. So I might as well refrain myself from watching them.
Isn't it hard to do so sometimes though? Like I don't get why it's called doom scrolling.
Yeah, I feel I just empty my brain and just scroll over and over.
Mindlessly.
Yes.
So true. So the numbers may seem small, but they hint at a larger shift in how we spend our time and what we prioritize. But it's never too late to take back your time as Grace did, and even a small change such as setting a regular bedtime or limiting screen usage before sleep can make a big difference. And that concludes our keyword news for this Tuesday. So as we head into the second day of the work week, we're diving into a topic that's becoming increasingly relevant for young job seekers: how the tough job market is reshaping attitudes towards work and company culture. So let's take a look at the screen to learn more. Going to your dream school and then finding the right job is one of the biggest goals for many young people. But in South Korea, landing that job, especially your first one, is no easy task. And lately, this tough job market has led to an interesting shift in how people view the workplace. Instead of seeing the company as an oppressive or overly traditional structure, more and more young people are finding pride in being part of a company. There's a growing emphasis on belonging, shared values, and feeling like you're contributing to something bigger. As we just saw, a shift in how young people view the workplace has started to take shape as finding a job becomes more difficult. For today's main discussion on News Generation, we're taking a closer look at this changing perception of work, what it means to be proud of your job, how company culture is influencing the new generation of workers, and whether this pride lasts once you're actually inside the company. So Sang-yeong, how would you describe the current state of the labor market right now? Do you think we're truly experiencing what many are calling an employment freeze, which is a term that's been widely used to describe a sharp downturn in hiring, especially for young people? Or do you think that might be a bit of an exaggeration?
Well, it's definitely not an exaggeration, that's for sure. So if you look at Work24, a government-owned employment platform, the number of new job openings was 150,000, which was an 11% decrease from the same period of last year. And as for the job seeker, the number turned out to be 390,000, 12% increase from last year. Now, if you look at this screen, you can check the changes of opening to application ratio. These points are calculated by dividing the number of job openings with the number of job seekers. So if the points are close to 0, it implies a tight job market, whereas if the points are more than 1, it means that companies are having difficulties finding job candidates. So for this year, the opening to application ratio is 0.39, a 0.1 drop from the same period of last year. And this means that there are only 39 open jobs available for every 100 job seekers. This year's ratio is the lowest in 26 years since 1999. And what's more concerning is that this number is even lower than that of June 2020 when COVID-19 swept across the country.
So you did a great job telling us about the job market overall, but Grace, what about young job seekers specifically? How tough is it right now for recent graduates and young workers to find meaningful employment?
Yeah, it seems like unfortunately job prospects are looking pretty gloomy for millennials and Gen Z in particular. The youth unemployment rate has been on a downward trend for the past 14 months. And while the overall employment rate last month increased for 6 consecutive months, youth unemployment reached its highest level in 4 years after the COVID-19 pandemic. On top of this, companies are barely hiring entry-level employees, and they're looking for experienced workers even when they're hiring interns. And this, of course, is making young job seekers lose hope and give up looking for jobs. And we're seeing the number of jobless young people reach 400,000.
And I think that's where the term 중고신입, which means experienced new hires, comes in, and that's why it's so hard for people to enter the company as a completely with no experience these days. So Sang-yeon, there's been a rise in admiration, and I guess this comes from it being so hard to find a job, an admiration for company traditions among job seekers. So how have company traditions become such a big deal for young people today?
Well, recently there has been one video that has gone viral on social media. It was about Samsung Electronics' new employee training session in 2006. So if you look at the video, it's being shared on platforms like YouTube and Instagram under titles such as Samsung Electronics Workshop back in the day. And this outdated corporate training style, which once thought to be obsolete, is now drawing attention from the MZ generation. And as the job market becomes increasingly competitive, the so-called old school events that emphasize a sense of belonging are ironically becoming objects of admiration since many youths are having a hard time finding jobs. It seems that even such an outdated corporate tradition is becoming a dream goal to many job seekers.
So I actually saw the video that you just mentioned while I was doom scrolling, and I saw how it kind of reminded me of the Super Bowl because I felt like it was held in a huge stadium, and it starts out with like a cheerleader, and there's also like a card stunt, and they spell out, and then they kind of form a Korean image, kind of I guess representing Samsung. So it's quite, the scale of it was quite impressive.
Yeah, I also saw that, and yeah, I had many feelings as I was watching that. Yeah, it was kind of like both. Yeah, I guess I can relate to those new employees, but at the same time, I felt like what exactly they have to do in order to feel being able to socialize with others, and especially in the companies, the sense of belonging. What is all of that? Yeah, it meant a lot for me.
There's definitely pros and cons to that. But Grace, do you think this sense of pride or excitement about company culture is already evident among young job seekers, even before they actually join the company? What kinds of things are they doing or saying that reflect this mindset?
Yeah, it seems like this type of collectivism and pride in company culture we used to see in the past is becoming more evident among today's young job seekers. It's said that some job candidates are coming to their final level interviews with neckties in the color of that specific company as a display of their loyalty. Or they're even going to the coin 노래방, which is like the one-person karaoke rooms, to practice songs that they're planning to sing at company dinners. So I think this shows us how desperate the job seekers are these days to land jobs.
I mean, I guess for people that are looking to hire, like putting that effort into, like you mentioned, like ties in that company's color would reflect well on them?
Yeah, I think honestly the ties, the colored ties are maybe like a sensible choice to, you know, appeal to to be more appealing to like the interviewers, and say that like, yeah, I'm ready to work for this company.
Yeah, right, exactly. So while this represents quite a big shift from the past when many people saw company traditions as oppressive or rigid, today's young job seekers are increasingly looking for workplaces where they can feel a genuine sense of belonging and pride. And to explore the change further, we ran a poll on the Arirang News YouTube channel asking our viewers what kind of company culture they would like to experience. And the responses gave us some interesting insights into what today's job seekers are really looking for. So according to the poll results, 52% of respondents said they would like to experience corporate training programs, making it the most preferred aspect of company culture. This was followed by company outings and retreats at 20%, while team dinners and gatherings came in at 15%. Lastly, 13% of respondents showed interest in in-house clubs such as hobby or sports groups. I can actually relate to this. I would like to, I think having like company training programs, like I've been saying this for a very long time since I pretty much entered this company, how I'd like to learn how to edit videos. I think that would also be interesting. Did you do anything interesting like with that corresponds to the poll results?
I remember being a part of the tennis club at my company. Which was really nice because I was able to learn something new through my workplace, which is something that I didn't really think about before. So I think that gave me like more of a sense of loyalty to the company because it gave me like an advantage, or it gave me something that I could learn.
Well, I think it's a benefit. You get to know people through that way too. So to learn more about how young people are navigating today's tough job market and what they're really looking for in a workplace, after the break, we'll be speaking with a college student in Korea who's currently on the job hunt. So don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Kim Jae-won, a university student here in Korea who is currently figuring out his next steps in the job market. Hi, Jae-won. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Yes, hello.
So how would you describe the job market these days? What's your personal experience or impression of the job market?
First of all, I feel really grateful to be given this opportunity to speak on behalf of other job seekers. Well, for me, what I've really been feeling lately is the rise in experienced applicants who are still considered newcomers. I think it's mainly because of the current economic situation. Many companies now prefer candidates who can immediately contribute without much training. As a result, it's getting harder for fresh graduates or those just entering the job market because naturally they may fall short compared to someone with actual work experience. That's why I think more people these days are working hard to build up the skills needed, specifically for major companies among job seekers is making employment gaps even longer. You know, honestly, I see this a lot around me. Some of my friends get offers from smaller companies, but choose not to take them because they want to keep preparing for jobs at big name firms. And that just makes it even harder to get into those top companies since so many people are aiming for the same spot. That's it.
Okay, Jae-won, I think we just had a bit of technical issue, but for the next question, would you still consider working at a company with a conservative or traditional culture if the salary was high, and why or why not?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I think every bit of experience matters. So if it were me, I'd probably go for it. I believe there are both horizontal and vertical types of corporate structures. And, you know, honestly, I think both have their own advantages. Vertical organizations tend to be more traditional or conservative in culture, but one good thing is that roles are clearly defined. So you often get great opportunities to play to your strengths. Another reason I actually consider working for a more traditional or conservative company is because of career paths. In those environments, there's usually a clear system in place for promotions and skill development. So if you work hard and meet the expectations, there's a good chance you'll move up steadily. For someone like me who values long-term growth and wants to build up experience step by step, the kind of predictability is really appealing. It gives you a clear roadmap, and sometimes knowing what to aim for makes it easier to stay motivated and focused. And if they pay well on top of that, I mean, that's a no-brainer. Thank you.
Okay, Jaewon, from a job seeker's perspective, what is the most important factor when choosing a company you work for?
I think growth potential and employee benefits are really important. When I think about growth, I tend to ask myself, how much will this job actually help me in building my long-term career path? I try to assess how much progress I can realistically make toward my end goal. This might be a bit of TMI, but my ultimate dream is to start my own clothing business. And to get there, I need to develop a wide range of skills. So I really focus on whether the job will help me build those capabilities. As for benefits, I believe they play a huge role in how well someone performs at work, especially when it comes to motivation. Nothing beats good benefits. These days, more and more people value having a clear boundary between work and personal life, and they want that boundary to be respected. So I think that's why many people consider benefits as a key factor when choosing a job. That was a long answer, but thanks for listening. Thank you.
There were some glitches in the connection, but thank you so much for sharing your insight, and we just want to wish you the best in your job seeking endeavors in the future.
Yes, thank you.
So we just heard from a job seeker in Korea. So Sang-hyuk, once people land a job, do you think they keep that sense of pride and belonging? What are your personal thoughts on corporate traditions?
Well, by now, the millennial generation have been in the workforce for quite some time, so I'm pretty sure that if they made promotion quickly, some of them may be already in the manager positions. And although it was challenging to adjust to a corporate lifestyle at first, I guess most have gradually adapted. I work as a freelancer, but even so, I've come to realize that some aspects of traditional office culture are necessary. Like that ones I used to believe were like needless, such as actually have values and, for example, taking notes during meetings or greeting colleagues in the morning. Those things are actually important if you want to work in a company. And these days, I hear that corporate culture is also evolving in a more progressive direction tailored to societal changes.
I think it's those traditions also that helps bring people closer. And right. A lot of people say you don't need to be close to people at work, but at the same time, it makes office life a bit more bearable at the same time. So Grace, since you're working in an office yourself, I'm kind of curious, what's the vibe like in your workplace? Do people talk about having pride in their company?
Sure, I've been at my current job for about 7 years now, so I am pretty familiar with the general culture and the vibes there. And since I work for a government-led agency, it is a conservative, yet it's a flexible environment, if that makes sense. Although we do have mandatory rules that we need to abide by, like strictly following work hours and other administrative protocols, the work itself is not as demanding as it would be for like a profit-seeking company in the private sector. So yeah, competition is less fierce and there's less pressure in general. And I don't know if my colleagues and I necessarily have like a sense of pride in the company, but we do appreciate the positive aspects that it offers, like less demanding hours and a laid-back atmosphere. And we actually had a Bring Your Children to Work Day last week, where a lot of parents seemed really proud to bring their kids to work and then show them the workplace and, you know, like all the benefits of working in that specific place. So
Sang-hyuk, for all the young people out there struggling to find jobs and start their careers, what advice would you give them to help them stay motivated and navigate these many challenges?
Can I just be honest and give a harsh, realistic advice? Okay, so if you're currently looking for a job, instead of blaming the current situation, why don't you start out with something small? Because everything has timing and the right steps. No one can start out as a manager with a 5K salary. Even the managers in each company started their career as an intern. So if you fail to find a job in a promising, large-sized firm, start your career at small SMEs and build more experience, and after that, switch your job to bigger companies with bigger roles. And it's true that the older generation had an advantage in employment compared to MZers, but I'm pretty sure they also had their own difficulties back in the days. So face the reality, objectively analyze your current status, and make a move with patience. Life is tough. It's not a fairy tale, but I can assure you, if you work hard and grasp the opportunity, and when the time comes, you'll finally see the bright days. And I really sounded like a boomer, so I'll stop here.
But I appreciate how you didn't try to sugarcoat anything. And it's true, like it's important to take things step by step. And if you work at it, you will find, you will get the result that you want. What about you, Grace? Any advice?
Yeah, of course, it's always important to keep others in mind as a member of an organization. And I also think that it's critical to be true to yourself too, because you're more prone to get burnt out if like your entire life is about that specific company and you're always influenced by the collective culture. Balance is key. So I encourage all job seekers and young working people to better get to know your values, your standards, and identity aside from your job as well, and yet also be able to get along with colleagues and adjust to your company culture as well.
I think that's also really good advice, adjusting to the company culture and getting along with people. It makes your life so much easier too, because you spend the majority of your time in the office at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So it's clear that the job market today is not just about getting hired, it's about finding a place where you feel seen, valued, and aligned with the culture. Interestingly, even company traditions once dismissed as outdated are being seen in a new light for some, as some of these rituals are a way to feel a part of something bigger. But job searching is not easy, and all of us sitting here on this panel have been through it too. It can be frustrating and at times even disheartening. But just remember that every moment of doubt gives you an opportunity to grow, and with each step, you're getting closer to the job that's really the right fit for you. We're also conducting a program survey that includes news generation until August 17th to better meet our viewers' expectations. So please visit us at www.arirang.com or on the Arirang TV mobile app to share your valuable feedback. And by participating, you'll also have a chance to win Bluetooth earbuds and exclusive K-pop merchandise. And this brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation, but News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Big thanks to Sang-yeol.
My pleasure, as always.
Good to have you. And Grace.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming in. And thank you to the viewers so much for watching, and we hope you have the best day. We are News Generation.
How to survive in Korea. One room. So, you're surviving in Korea if you've signed a contract for a one room. Obviously, you're a pro. But the real deal begins now. Step 1. Housewarming. No need to buy toilet paper, diffusers, or hand soap. You'll get them soon enough as housewarming gifts. And some are bound to pile up. There's nothing better to serve your guests than milpaeyu nabe. If you have Korean friends coming over, don't forget the extra garlic. Step 2. Garbage disposal. With great power comes great responsibility. You've had a good time, so let's get to work. It might be tempting to sweep everything into a trash can, but you have to separate your garbage. Not bothered? Beware that negligence is punished with a fine or public humiliation. Step 3. Drying rack. You're excited to live alone in Korea, but the fate of these items, hanger, storage, or a hanger. Go get fresh coffee outside. Jogging doesn't cost anything, and nothing beats instant rice. But keep one item around so that you don't get too lonely. Step 4. Pros of living alone. No mum. Cons of living alone. No mum. A new towel doesn't magically appear. You have to do the laundry regularly. If anyone gives a towel as a souvenir, take it. Get rid of mold immediately. Don't be lazy with the vacuum cleaner. Housework is an endless affair. Overwhelmed? Give your mum a call and thank her for everything she's done. Did you survive in your one room? Wait, you have an unwanted visitor. Call someone you fancy. Could be the right person for the job.
너무